This is where I want to start. Let's recap how we got here. We came into this second term with high hopes. And again, the excitement, the hype, the promises, and the central idea was it will be different this time. They said Trump will finish the job. He's going to actually put America first. All you have to do is vote one more time. Ignore the haters, ignore the skeptics. Just vote one more time. It's going to be awesome. Well, here we are. And we have this interview from Laura Ingraham. She's at Fox News. She interviews Trump. This is a week after the first major election since the Trump victory. This is the off-year election, the governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia, mayoral election in New York City. First major test. How's Trump doing? It's a blowout for the Democrats. Democratic Socialist becomes mayor of New York City. Republicans do about 10 points worse in New Jersey, lose by double digits in Virginia. Even in Virginia, a statewide official wins after text messages come out where he's talking about killing Republicans. He somehow wins too. It's a bloodbath. It's, no pun intended, it's brutal. And why do Democrats win? They win in part because of the shutdown in Virginia, Northern Virginia, where people are affected because they work for the government or government contractors, but also because the vibes are off. People have a feeling that things are not going well, in particular with the economy. Prices remain high. Homeowners insurance remains high. Healthcare insurance is very high. Health insurance, I should say, is very high. And although inflation is stabilized, it's still a little high. Interest rates are still high, and the prices have not come down. At the same time, the job market's very bad. And so Americans are getting squeezed. There's a lot of signs that the economy is okay, it's chugging along, but there's also a lot of reasons to be worried. There's a lot of credit card debt. It seems that Americans are basically insolvent. Wealth is down. Everybody's feeling it. Everybody's feeling these cumulative effects of the inflation of the past 5 years, as well as the interest rates. It's been tough. So here we are a week after this blowout election. Republicans are losing because the economy sucks. And Trump comes out in the interview and he defends. He's given an opportunity. This is like a layup. This is a softball. Laura Ingraham serves it up. She says, so what do you think actually about the Chinese students? Which at one point it was said Trump was going to ban Chinese students from coming here altogether. All Chinese students would be barred from entering the country, and that was part of the trade war. That sounded good. And Trump did a 180. He said, actually, we're going to bring twice as many Chinese students in. Then he said, well, no, that's not what we meant. So Laura Ingraham asked him to clarify. This is what happened.
I'll pull that up instead of having him read it.
You've said as many as 600,000 Chinese students could come to the United States. Why, sir, is that a pro-MAGA position when so many American kids want to go to school and there are places not for them and these universities are getting rich off Chinese money?
Sure. Never said about China, but we do have a lot of people coming in from China. We always have, China and other countries. We also have a massive system of colleges and universities. And if we were to cut that in half, which perhaps makes some people happy, you would have half the colleges in the United States go out of business.
So what?
Well, I think...
Hold on a moment. Half of the universities would go out of business if half of the Chinese students stopped attending them? Why is it that half of our universities are reliant on China? That just seems ludicrous. That's just bad business.
I think that's a big deal.
Are they fans
you would have the
of the United States?
Yeah, but you would have, as you know, historically, black colleges and universities would all be out of business. You would have a system of colleges and universities would go down the tubes.
So we're dependent on China to keep our university system going?
But I think it's good to have, I actually think it's good to have outside countries. Look, I want to be able to get along with the world.
They're not the French. They're the Chinese. They spy on us. They steal our intellectual property.
What, do you think the French are better?
Yeah.
Really? I don't know. I'll tell you, I'm not so sure. We've had a lot of problems with the French where we get taxed very unfairly on our technology, where, you know, they put 25% taxes on American products. Look, assuming everyone treats us badly, because that's the way I am, but we take in trillions of dollars from students. You know, the students pay more than double when they come in from most foreign countries. I want to see our school system thrive, but at the same time, I know you and I disagree.
Yeah.
We're never going to agree on
No.
it, but that's okay. And it's not that I want them, but I view it as a business. We have millions and millions of people. Also, I want to get along with countries if possible.
Hold on a moment. So you view this as a business, but we, the American taxpayers, subsidize the loans for the students. Therefore, we are subsidizing these universities, but then you see it as a business. So they should be able to make as much money as possible, even though the reason that we're subsidizing these universities is so that we, the American people, can be better educated, so that we have access to these universities. But you're letting those spots at these top universities be taken up by foreigners. Can somebody explain to me how that is America first? Again, I've said this before. My merch is going to say Americans first, because America is one big corporation. As far as I'm concerned, Trump thinks America is the stock market.
Pay attention to what Trump says here. He says, first of all, he says, I could cut the number of Chinese students in half and make some people happy, he said. But think of the universities. Then what would happen? That's one. Two, he said, I look at it as a business. It's a business. It's all about money. We need the Chinese money. So when Trump says that cutting the number of Chinese students would make some people happy, who do you think those people are? Exactly. It's his voters. When Trump says, well, you know, I could cut the number of Chinese students coming into America, I suppose that would make some people happy. He's referring to his voters who voted for him to do this. Your voters, the forgotten men and women of America, voted for you to do that. To put American students, their children, or themselves, ahead of the universities, which are run by our enemies, by the way. Academia is run by the left. Academia is run by liberals, Democrats. They do not support Trump or his government or Republicans. Universities are notorious for this.
100%.
And Chinese students. So Trump says, well, I guess I could make you happy by doing what I promised. I guess I can make my voters happy by doing what I promised to do. But think about all the money. Think about the Chinese students and think about all the money that would go to the universities. I don't know. I think that it would actually be a good thing if we had fewer colleges and universities. If colleges and universities cannot exist without foreign money, then they shouldn't. Isn't that a simple and basic principle? We have too many colleges. We have too many college graduates. It's devaluing a college diploma. And by the way, the job market is frozen. You have a very high percentage of Americans with a college diploma, a college degree, but a much smaller percentage of them that actually have a job in the field that they got an education in.
Correct.
So if you have all these universities and all these students graduating and entering a very tight job market, if they can't exist without that arrangement, which is America last, let them go out of business.
Yep.
Let them go out of business. Or better yet, let them economize. Maybe instead of spending all this money on state-of-the-art amenities and sports facilities and recreational facilities, I don't know, maybe you need to cut those things. Maybe you need to eliminate some of the programs there. But the whole point, that's beside the point. The whole point of electing Trump in the first place is that you're supposed to put Americans and their concerns first. And it goes without saying, if a Chinese student goes to Harvard or Yale, that is one less spot for an American. There are only so many spaces at elite schools. There's only so many seats there at elite public and private schools on the East Coast to West Coast, everywhere in between. Research universities, liberal arts universities. There's only so many spots.
And that extends to the employers after university. There's only so many jobs. You are educating foreigners. And then at the same time, you're saying that Americans aren't educated enough to take the jobs. And so we have to import a bunch of Indians and Chinese to take jobs.
And if there are 600,000 Chinese students coming here, those are 600,000 seats that don't go to Americans. And I understand that maybe it's flexible, give or take 100 or 1,000 in a particular university. But if you're doubling the amount of Chinese students, if we're talking about 500,000 in a given year, there are Americans who won't be going to college this year because a Chinese student is. And the reason that we elected Trump in the first place in 2016 was to reverse those priorities and say, what about those American students actually? What about American human capital? What about Americans that have talents?
Not to mention, what you are doing is you are educating 600,000 people who are not Americans, who were not born in America, who are not allegiant to America. Even if you were to send them back to China, okay, 600,000 Chinese kids come here, they get educated in American universities, the top universities in the world, then they go back to China, and then China has 600,000 individuals who are educated at the best universities, now competing against American businesses and putting American businesses out of business because they're coming up with better products and more innovation. Long term, these are dumb policies. We are saying on the one hand, China is our biggest competitor, and then on the other saying, let's educate all of their citizens at the best universities.
America has a huge pool of highly skilled labor, or I should say human capital, with a high IQ, who are able to be educated, able to be trained, able to work in skilled fields. America has one of the highest, in terms of the index of human capital, we rank among the highest out of all the countries in the world. Surely we have the talent. Surely we have the people. What about those kids? Isn't that the whole point? Isn't why their parents voted for Trump? Isn't that why they voted for Trump? So, they would have the opportunity to go to college. And then, by the way, let's not forget where this leads. The whole point of going to the most selective college is so that you can be the most competitive in the job market. And at a time where entry-level positions in the best fields are scarce, at a time when the labor market is very tight, there's not a lot of firing, but there's also not a lot of hiring going on. People are looking for any way to get a leg up. And so if you're taking away those seats at colleges for students, you're also really taking away a very good livelihood for them too. It's not just that Chinese students are coming here to study, they're coming here to work. They're coming here to get a degree, and then they're going to get in the optional training program, and then they're going to get a job straight out of college. You're going to get one of the better jobs. You're going to get a STEM job. That's a job that could have then gone to an American. That's a lifetime. The whole American dream is you study hard, your parents pay high property taxes to send you to a good public high school where there aren't gang wars and black people getting in fights so that you can go to a good college. They pay for an SAT tutor. They pay for extracurriculars so you can get into a good college. You're supposed to then go to college, pay an arm and a leg for a good degree, and then you get a leg up and you get to enter into the workforce as a professional, get a nice white-collar job with a high salary, with good benefits, and then you get to get married. You get a big enough job in a competitive field, in a high-paying field. You're able to buy a home, get a wife, start a family. That's the deal. And that's how somebody goes from working class or lower middle class to upper middle class. Or you get to be rich. That's the deal. That's the program. That's what it means to be America first, is to think of those people in Iowa, those people in Kansas, those people in South Dakota, wherever, and in California, New York too. But it's thinking about Americans going to college, to get jobs, to start families, to own homes, to lead good lives, to actually have prosperity in the American dream. That's the whole point. I want everybody to take a moment here and try to remember what you felt like when Trump won the election exactly a year ago. So Trump won the election, November 5th last year? So it's about a year and a week ago. And do you remember the exuberance of that night? The hype? How excited everybody was. Trump wins in a landslide. He wins the popular vote. And it wasn't just that he won. Remember the sentiment.
I remember.
The sentiment was, it will be different this time. They said, it will be different this time. Golden age. It's going to be a golden age. A truly golden age. You're going back. You're going back, they said. You have 50 days until all illegals will be deported. Remember this? They said, we're going to cut the deficit by $2 trillion. Remember Elon Musk was in the White House? Yeah, you forgot. It got memory hold. Remember Doge? Department of Government Efficiency, like the meme coin? We're going to cut $2 trillion from the deficit. We're going to deport millions of people. We're going to eliminate the Department of Education. We're going to build the wall. We're going to end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Remember? Everybody thought it was going to be Trump and Vivek and Elon and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. dancing to Staying Alive while they shrank the government and, introduced the golden age and everything would be great. Remember this? Trump was on the All In podcast with David Sachs after he visited his house in San Francisco for a fundraiser where Silicon Valley poured millions into his campaign. And during that All In appearance on the podcast, he said we were going to staple green cards to diplomas, the age-old policy that never seems to die. They promised they're going to give permanent residency to every foreign student that graduates from any degree program in the United States. Horrible open borders, America last policy.
Any degree program in the United States, which means anybody can come in if they want. Look at the degrees that the colleges are offering. I'd argue the majority of degrees aren't even valuable to America. There are many degrees that are a net negative to society, meaning the students take up 4 to 6 years of their time, not something that is economically valuable to the extent that it creates now an indentured servant who's never going to be able to pay off that debt, and that the taxpayer may eventually end up having to pay for anyways, based off of the talking points that we're hearing.
That made me say, you know what? This is not going to be different. It's going to be exactly like the first term. They're going to make all the same mistakes. You're not going to get America First immigration policy. You're going to get a war with Iran. They're not going to be able to end this war in Ukraine. Like, none of the things they're promising are actually going to come true. And people told me I was a Democrat. Brutal. People said, you're a Democrat infiltrator. They said I was working for Kamala. They said I took a deal to get out of prosecution for January 6th. And the deal was that, if the FBI didn't charge me, that I would help the Democrats win the election. Like, that's what they were saying about me, because I predicted everything correctly. Fast forward to the election, people said, oh man, plan trusters are in control. We win. It's going to be different this time. And then one thing after the other. First, they pick a cabinet of all neocons. Matt Gaetz drops out of Congress, isn't the attorney general. We get Rubio for state. We get Ratcliffe at the CIA. We get Waltz at the National Security Council. He's working for Israel. Then on Christmas, Trump isn't even inaugurated. And on Christmas, we have a full-fledged meltdown from Vivek and Elon saying, if you don't like H-1B visas, you're a racist, and we're going to kick you out of the Republican Party, and you're a cancer, and you're scum. That was on Christmas. On and on and on like this. The failure to carry out the mass deportations, the multiple visits from Israel, bombing Iran, the burying of the Epstein files, the carve-outs for farm workers, the corporate tax, one thing after the next.
And that's exactly right. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video. Let me know what you think down below in the comments, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.